Part of the reason I wanted to talk to you about this especially is because I mean you've been in the skiller community for AC since like day one basically since you started playing the games.
The only people that were like super doing it like before me would be MaceoniK and just the Hidden Blade crew, which I mean I was a part of.
Yeah. Good old Daz. That's actually so legendary.
Dark
Dark
Alphabet Zoop.
Alphabet Zoop.
Dark Alphabet Zoop. You know how before YouTube did not let you like make a custom handle or change your
Yeah,
handle?
yeah, it was your
Yeah.
channel like link or yeah instead it was not Leo K, it was Dark
It
Alphabet
was
Zoop.
Dark Alphabet Zoop, yeah, for years, and then it let me change it to Leo K Rogue, and then change it to that.
Ah, the end of an era. Yeah, man, the Hidden Blade. I go in there like sometimes just looking at stuff. One thing that I noticed when AC came out, like there was, I mean, there's the Evanescence, Bring Me to Life, of course the classic
ENX04 expert gameplay in Assassin's
yeah,
Creed.
yeah. 11 ways to wield the hidden blade, or guys like Stab Guy posting stuff, all the different, or into Varia, like all the there's it's very weird that like there was all this stuff right at the beginning of like
Oral,
tons
Joey
of stuff,
Fogey.
and
Yeah.
then it just like and there was so much like people teching the games just like we do on the server and
It was
people
all the way
wanting
up to
to,
AC3. And then
and then
around AC4ish, it started to slow down. And then by the
mhm.
time of Unity, there was almost nothing.
Doesn't that say a lot?
And it just kept going that way.
Doesn't that in and of itself tell you a lot
Certainly told
about
us.
how the series went,
Yeah.
like even like mechanically in terms of expressiveness, and also the other thing I think because we talked about all the narrative is I think just when you can see that things are never there's a very big shift in like when you have a single unified direction in the entire overarching narrative and then it just immediately becomes clear that that's never going to be fulfilled, it becomes
Lore,
very easy to drop out.
lore discussion used to also be like a super big part of
Yep.
the Hidden Blade, where like we really consider it's kind of, you can take it how you want, but like we really considered ourselves scholars of the games in a very real way, where like on the Hidden Blade, like it wasn't just mechanics or just story, it was
Yeah.
actually both. And we
Yeah.
really believed, and like none of us ever said this out loud, but we could tell we all strongly believed understanding one would help you understand the other and vice versa. And that's why we
Mm.
really cared about mechanics and we really cared about story and we really cared about like teaching it to each other. We behaved like as, like the Massey of Assassins would like post AC1,
Yeah, that
essentially.
makes sense. We talked about Alamut earlier. If you talk about how the Fedayeen are operate within Alamut in that book, that's like that idea of instruction by your peers and
Yeah.
that making you yeah.
That
It's
that
an
is what
interesting tie-in.
sharpens you and that is what helps you reach your potential.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's something
Yeah.
that I wanted to take that and bring it. The reason I started uploading Unity stuff to my channel is because I wanted to like inspire more people to play these games in a way, just let them feel the cool immersive assassin vibe more. Assassin's Creed was never really taken seriously as something that you could like invest into like emotionally and technically for a very
Yeah.
long time.
Which they don't understand.
As compared to
They don't.
like, I mean, games
Yeah.
like Devil May Cry, for example, were obviously
Oh,
like
sure.
almost synonymous with skilling, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Obviously.
Things like that, right? And so like I really wanted to show people like this is what happens when someone cares about Assassin's Creed a lot. I'm less skilled as a player than some, but I had that like tenacity. I hit the 1-2 punch. This is cool stuff. And then there's the guide videos where it's like, this is how to do the cool stuff. Which
Yeah.
again, that is very Hidden Blade.
Mm-hmm.
That is very the Hidden Blade philosophy. People like Ian and Stab Guy, like they would upload content. This is the cool thing, and then down in the description they would explain like this is how I did it. That really stuck with me, that philosophy and that mindset of give people the ability to do what you do, because I knew from personal experience like this helped me enjoy the game, and that's what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do. I've always been like that, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. If you really, really enjoy entertainment to like a passionate extent, when you love something, it's almost like anti-gatekeeping, right? Where it's like when you really love something, you actually want to help other people love it like as much as you do.
Yep.
And so like that was huge for me. And I think that after that, that is something that definitely influenced a lot of like modern AC skiller, the like really good qualities and really good traits. They definitely do owe a lot to the Hidden Blade, and so do I.
Part of that too is there was almost no carryover. You're one of the few that actually have proper carryover from THB, whereas the rest of us, like a lot of us, were just figuring things out. Like we would be, there was a while there where it actually felt like we were discovering a new tech every day, and people were just labbing tons of stuff out in the classic games, especially.
Yeah,
but
it was so cool to see that.
But then we'd go, like, one of us would go on the Hidden Blade and just find some random article about it from freaking 2011. And it's like, of course they would know about this. Why wouldn't they have known about it? It's like
it's literally like finding the memory discs where you guys are like going to like Assassin Ruins and shit, and it's like, oh my god, like they had this back then, like.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, so a lot of it was rediscovery in reality. It's crazy that so much of this was already known, but it just never got out. And I think that's because it's like, how many people that play Assassin's Creed know about THB?
Very few. Yeah. And think about how this parallels like the series itself, like narratively. Like I said, like the whole you're rediscovering like old Assassin Ruins and like first Civ relics and stuff.
Yeah, the Codex, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's very interesting, very thematically appropriate. But yeah, this idea that a lot of our work was just rediscovering stuff that people had already known for a decade, but it just, everyone that cared enough to know that was gone because the series stopped caring about them.
Yeah, it really did feel that way. Like, I think there was a period of my life where, and again, like, some people might not understand why it, like, impacted me so hard, but consider that, like, I was, you know, there on like TheHiddenBlade.com when like Assassin's Creed was our big shared passion, and we would literally talk about it every day. Like whenever I would come home after finishing like school or work or whatever, I would be on the Hidden Blade like immediately. It was my favorite place to be, to hang out, to like look at like what did people say. My homepage online for such a long time was literally most recent posts on THB. That was literally when I clicked open my browser, it would open to that. That's what mattered most to me in my life. And so like it did at one point feel a lot like Assassin's Creed was like abandoning us and like abandoning me. And that's why like I was so just incredibly hurt. And like I would, you know, I went to Reddit after, like I kind of like discovered Reddit like sometime after.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and like that was actually
photos taken seconds before disaster.
I know, right? But like the thing is, like the AC Reddit was actually really quite good for quite a while.
Right. You made a video about this. I remember this.
Yeah, it was really quite good for a while, and then like Origins happened, and it like became a little bit less good, and then Odyssey happened and it became like unusable.
Yep.
And I was just like,
we all joke about it. Now the joke is like, oh, go read the Assassin's Creed Reddit comments. Ha ha ha.
It's
or the official AC Discord server too. That's another one.
I'm not even a part of that.
Animus Drifter's there, especially now with Shadows. You say anything bad about any of the new games, and a lot of people just refuse to even. He's very cordial. He's very polite. He speaks very cogently. He's a careful thinker. His critiques are well founded, but people just don't want to hear it. Like,
there's definitely something weird about the internet, like currently, like 2024, 2025 internet, because like when I even contrast this like back to being on the Hidden Blade, we criticized those old games all the time.
Oh, I remember reading this post from the Hidden Blade. This person was like, they were talking about how Assassin's Creed 3 should make these modifications to parkour mechanics because they were calling the Assassin's Creed, for which again AC went to Rev. They were speaking about how it was too automated and it needed to be.
Think about that, dude. Imagine that. Even back then, we were like, "This is too automated."
Yep, exactly, and they're right.
We were right.
Like compare that to the mod. right? Like
Yeah.
that's what Assassin's Creed should have gone from. And it's, it's fine that the first game was like that, right? Like it's fine that
Yeah.
AC1 is how it is, right? Because
Yeah, it
when
was the
that's your
first
first
attempt.
time at that, it was Arkham Asylum that needed an Arkham City, which
Yeah.
then needed an Arkham Knight.
Yeah.
It just never got it. But
Exactly.
that's the thing. AC3 should have been the Arkham
Like
City.
the foundation cannot be faulted. Like the foundation is the foundation.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
certainly like we would have expected evolution and not regression.
Exactly. And yeah, it's crazy that and you read those posts like that one floored me when I read it. I was like,
Isn't that
and I checked the
crazy?
date. It was from 2012, so like it makes perfect sense. It's again, it's another thing why I think AC3 is a lot better in retrospect. Which again, of course, it's not justification for like AC1 to Rev system is good for its time in the sense that it should have improved beyond this point,
Yeah.
but that doesn't make it bad in of itself. It's really good and it does a lot. It was not good enough.
Yes.
It was not
Even back then we knew
it was
that.
not the peak of what was achievable with this kind of idea for what a system is.
Yeah.
And the mod has more than proved that.
It's
Even within the exact same system, we've proved that.
yeah, just by like giving the player more manual control and
Hmm.
more buttons that like unlock more things that they're in the game, you are just not allowed to call those functions.
Especially if you have a strong limitation to a puppeteering paradigm, like a strong link to that. A lot of the moves start to, like, in some of them make sense that they're modifiers of existing input actions, but in other ways it's like, why am I pushing armed hand to vault, right?
Right.
So you kind of have to be willing to break from the strict puppeteering paradigm if you want to have the mod. Not fully, because I think having a parkour mode and saying once I put these into this modifier, then like okay, I can
It's
detach
still
my
one of
right
your
hand.
hands, so like I'm totally cool with it.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's not like a full break, but it's not as strict of an adherence to the puppeteering paradigm as AC1 really like depends on.
Yeah.
So I think that
There was only
I
so
think
many buttons on the controller, like at the end of the
exactly.
day.
So I think AC1 like if you want to be as puppeteering as I think AC1 really benefits from being, there's only so much you can do. But if you're willing to deviate a little bit, then yeah, like the mod mechanics are fantastic, and it's exactly where they should have gone with it
I
ultimately.
think what's really cool is like the puppeteering system was built by Abstergo to like more easily acclimate gamers to the Animus, basically,
Yep.
if you read the instruction manual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Or
it makes
rather,
sense.
it's almost like how game controllers are developed in real life for like military use, and then they kind of bleed
Yeah.
over to civilian sector, and then like,
Mm.
wait, we're able to play video games with these, right? Like that's great.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed
I
is kind of
mean,
like that, where they use these controls in
mhm.
the Animus to let like subjects interface with whatever knowledge Abstergo wants, and then years
Yeah.
later they bleed over to the civilian sector, and it's like, hey, look, Helix, you can play fun VR games. It's just really interesting. But I think
Yeah.
what that leads to is that the puppeteering system is not necessarily the be all end all. It's just
Hmm.
like the basic paradigm that Abstergo developed. But in
Yeah.
theory, very like intense assassins and like Animus hackers can go beyond it, which is what this
Yeah.
mod does. It's very like
Yeah.
erudito in that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That's a really good way of thinking about it. It really is interesting that the whole scene died and then it spawned up again because guys like you and a few others were like just shouting from the rooftops like, hey, these games are cool. You'd probably like them if you played them and understood how to
We
play them.
wanted more people to love them. Like the classic, like when I realized people are watching the Unity videos, like the really awful, like just trash like Unity stealth
Yeah.
videos I started out with, and they were enjoying them, and they were like they're asking me all these things like, yo, how do you like, this game is so hard, how do I like play this game, right? And I'm just like, okay, oh my god, that meme is hilarious.
I think you'd like it.
Wow, that is actually really, who made that? That's crazy.
Me,
Wow.
I made that.
Wow. Yeah, that's some emotions right there. You know, I'm
It
thinking,
really be like that.
man, I hope so. It's just like at the time I was like, wow, you know, people really want to know about this. Let me just give the knowledge that I have, like, hey, this is how I am able to enjoy Unity, right? And that was like the whole advanced mechanics guide, where it's not actually
Mhm.
that advanced by today's standards, but back then nobody knew jack shit about how to play ACU.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go, have that. Suddenly a lot of people are able to enjoy the game a lot easier, you know, and then I realized, like, wait a minute, if this is like this effective for Unity, I can help people enjoy the game I actually really like,
Yeah.
AC1 to Rev, the classic movement guide, because I keep hearing people being parkour in these old games is really bad, and I'm just like, are you sure about that? Do you think you would have more fun if you like knew very simple but very useful tricks for like how to actually enjoy it? And
Yeah.
that really helped people.
Because it'll be thing that's here's the other thing that is challenging with like my AC3 thing. It's that people, despite like having a bad experience with the movement, they loved those games anyway. Right?
Yes.
They loved AC2. It's like, why would you not want to like this game more?
Yeah, exactly.
If you could enjoy playing this game, with, by the way, the things you like the games following AC2 for, actually AC2 did better. AC1 did better. Brotherhood did better. Revelations did better. It's like, you just got to learn a little bit, just a bit,
And then
like
you will be able to
20
have
minute
access to
video.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
And
And
I
it's like,
think
yeah.
that was really interesting to see like how many people that benefited. And I
Yeah.
think like to this day that's probably the best thing I've done
Yep.
on an emotional level where it's like I'm really glad I did this.
Even the AC subreddit, right? Like if you talk about, the way parkour, perfect example, right? If you look at the way people talk about parkour in class in AC now, if you go outside of the more dedicated circuit, even on like kind of normie videos, you will see comments with hundreds of likes, hundreds of upvotes or whatever, defending the classic parkour system as better, and everything else is just being a downgrade from it.
I feel like a few years ago that was definitely not the
You
case.
never saw it. It
No.
was all Unity everywhere. Nobody, like, you might be. It was me and like you sometimes in some replies. Like you were already kind of kind of giving up on some of that stuff. I was in there. I was in the Reddit replies. I was even the DMs for a bit. Like it was. I was losing my marbles over trying to convince these people. But like the text doesn't work.
I was already dead in the chair in Masyaf by then like
Yeah. Yeah, requiescat in pace. But yeah, it's like you just realize that, like, oh yeah, the text doesn't work. Like I can't explain these things to them if I don't have if like I can make
you need
text
to show it.
textual arguments.
Yeah.
They need to see it.
And
Once
that's the
you see,
thing.
like,
Assassin's Creed has lived on its cool factor for so long. It's always
yeah.
been the most effective tool. I mean, even back when I was on the Hidden Blade, like the number one thing that like encouraged me to learn something or like a cool mechanic or trick is like this looks really sick. That's always been like one of the most powerful tools for like showing or explaining anything to people is just like show them the coolest version of it.
And that's part of why what I did with my AC3 stuff, and like especially the parkour. My most recent parkour snippet that I posted, James Lizards commented on. He said, what did he say? It was something like, I think AC3 kind of really is the parkour that people pretend Unity has,
Yeah.
is what he said. And it's like, yeah, because it really is like, sure, it has its problems, but it really is in a lot of ways classic parkour with a really, really good animation upgrade.
Yeah, and it basically has all of the same buttons. Like parkour down is even already in AC3 in a very
Yep.
similar way to Unity, where like
Yeah.
you can straight up hold high profile and descend at the same
Yeah.
time, and you'll just
If
auto path
only,
down ledges.
if only there was a way to disable air tackle, man.
Yeah.
Oh man, if AC3 parkour down without air tackle would go nuts. Petrichor's modded that into the remaster already. So
Ooh.
yeah, once that gets added to the, especially AC Rogue, even like just for quality of life, even if nothing else, being able to tackle civilians in Rogue is so bad. I really wanted to make Unity videos just because, I don't know, I felt like an intriguing challenge. I've kind of done the Choreo mindset of playing games even before I even knew about Choreo. Like the amount of times I replayed Uncharted 4 stealth encounters trying to do the perfect run.
Just to make it feel cool for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. The
Some people just naturally like lean toward that.
I was doing that for years before I even found out about Choreo. I'm like, wait, people like other people do this too. Like I got to join in this. I want to I want to show people about this. So that was what got me into it. The parkour thing, really, really, it was realize, like seeing like you, the untapped market potential of just posting these games played well. Like look what's happened. Like we talked about it very much near the beginning of our discussion where like what happens now when I look up AC2 parkour? It is objectively like peak gameplay. Like literally like it's hard to play AC2 better than this.
Yeah.
Those are the first results that show up. That shows up top of the line search results.
Yeah.
Whereas before it's like,
Just
10 minutes of Assassin's Creed 2 parkour and it's just a dude running, holding legs and high profile and running in a straight direction. Or it's the evolution of parkour videos where it's like, they'll go up a parkour starter and, run across some roofs or whatever.
yeah, it's just
Whereas,
not
you look
representative at all.
You look at an Animus drifter video and it's like, bruh.
Yeah.
That is why the public perspective on the games has shifted so much. It's because
They have that easily
Choreo
accessible reference.
and Choreo and Skiller has gone mainstream. And the effect of that has been what we've seen. It's that most of the fans that actually care about the series are advocating for the earliest, like what AC really is about. It's informed.
That's
a large
crazy.
group that understands, at least if not narratively, at the very least mechanically, has a good mechanical conception of what Assassin's Creed needs to be. It's not that there aren't other people that make other arguments, but like the people that really know what they're talking about, or not even necessarily know what they're talking about. I mean, everyone knows what they're talking about, get it, but the people who care.
Right, that are very, very passionate.
The people who care enough to talk about it, get it. That's a really big connection.
I never thought I would see that, personally.
Yeah, but, that's what Choreo going mainstream has done. And it's only getting better because now we have the mods. So now we're bringing in the modder scene of people wanting to mod because mods before were like reskins of outfits or whatever, for
the
God
name
mode or
taken
whatever.
just like blew it wide open.
With ACU fixes. And then, your prediction was absolutely right that like, in a year, like AC modding is going to completely take off. And we literally turned classic parkour into probably the best third person movement system. I don't know if you could build one better than it, honestly. Like, genuinely, I don't know what you would do to build something better than that.
Yeah.
For what, like, the kind of concept it's going for, I don't know what you would improve on.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And it's funny because that whole parkour mode thing, your video, what was it?
My idea of, like, a parkour filter.
All Ubisoft would need to do to make a more accessible version is make a game with AC1 to Rev parkour, maybe add safe parkour. That would be the easy mode would be add safe parkour. So disable ejects and, prevent people from just easily jumping off of ledges if they're too high. The middle mode would be just AC1 to Rev parkour, that kind of functionality. So it's you have a lot of control over your movement, but it's still fairly automated and there's a lot of granularity you don't necessarily have access over. And then the last thing would be the mod. You just add the parkour mode and bam, right? It's
you
full
just have
functionality,
everything.
Full control. So that idea that you elucidated there is actually real now.
That's insane.
Disable the mod and like leave on the passive, disable stumble or there's a number of passive things that you could leave those on and never engage with anything else the mod does. I think if you don't want to deal with the granularity, getting the mod just to disable stumble in the Ezio trilogy is worth it for that alone.
That's
that
huge. Yeah.
alone is worth getting the mod for. Even if you don't touch any of the other things, use the mod for that.
Right.
Because that thing is just an annoyance and it adds nothing to the game whatsoever.
Honestly, like I barely even make Assassin's Creed videos at all. I can't bring myself to do them. I'm just not. I've done so much with it and with the classics. It also just kind of feels like I'm so happy that there's so much representation for just classic AC. And
I have seen enough for one life.
Yeah, it's literally just that.
I
like
have done my part.
Yeah, like I'm literally just chilling in the chair in Masyaf, like.
Yeah.
It would take
instead of dying, you just like go play anime games.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like it would take a lot to bring me back, I feel like.
Yeah. If you did something, literally just do a AC1 modded, like parkour mod playthrough of AC1. I feel like you'd be able to enjoy that the most because you're literally just playing AC1.
Yeah.
No, nothing special on top of that. And maybe what I'm planning to do with this AC3 series is kind of do a journal thing where I might summarize some of the things. But with AC1, I don't think you'd even need to do that. I think with AC1, you could really just let the game speak for itself and just do a no commentary, casual playthrough of just going through the game and just playing it. If you did anything, I think that would be the best thing, because you don't have any of the choreo brain rot to deal with. You just literally play your favorite game ever with a vast improvement to the movement system.
That would actually be pretty sick, I'm not gonna lie. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm assuming you probably still play AC1 pretty regularly.
I do, yeah.
So.
It's just one of those things where, like, I just love the game.
Yeah, it's fair enough, man. Like, that's what I would say, is play the game and people will watch it. Just play AC1 and whatever happens. And you know the game well enough that I really doubt you're not going to make any really embarrassing mistakes in the gameplay. It's like, oh, this is too bad, I don't want to post this or whatever. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just roll with it. Yeah, that would be good Assassin's Creed content. Animus Drifter has all these crazy edits on all of his videos, and I'm really glad someone's doing that. I'm very glad that Choreo doesn't require that, and I can really just make it about playing the game.
Yeah.
And playing it well. And that's especially...
That's always been what's kind of beautiful about it, is like anybody can participate.
It's different from having like a video essay. It's someone talking about the game, whereas the game does the talking. Yeah. In the choreo. Another thing too, since we're talking about the mod and the state of choreo as a whole, one thing going into my contribution especially was parkour choreo, and really helping make that a thing. I kind of see myself as the grandfather of parkour choreo.
There was a big shift there, and I feel like you were definitely, like, there was a before and after you really started uploading.
Yeah, and maybe grandfather can be Banana Grandmaster and Sebastian. Oh, I think that's because they were posting long before I was. Maybe I could get, like, I don't know, godfather of parkour choreo. I don't want to give myself father. That feels too pretentious. It's crazy how much that's exploited, and it's even on the server too. That when we talk about choreo, the implication is parkour. That's the baseline assumption, is that when we talk about choreo, it is a parkour choreo, which is so strange because
once upon a time that used to be stealth, right?
Almost all choreo was stealth until Jcers posted a parkour snippet, and then everyone just decided, hey, you can choreo stuff in movement too. It looks pretty cool. I don't know, it's pretty neat. Because we had everyone choreoing, that was really what started the tech explosion. Rediscovery.
Yeah.
Because everyone started doing movement, looking for new movement tech. And the effect of that is, well, if you have, what do they always say, 2 pairs of hands are better than 1? So
that was crazy, because, like, I was already kind of away by that point, but I would still kind of, like, dip in from time to time to, like, check out what was going on. And I was like, damn, like, the Assassin Brotherhood is kind of alive, huh? Like, what's going on here? Like,
we've been schmoovin'. Execution producer posting, and it just bled over not into just movement, but it was stealth and combat too.
Execution producer, big props. I really love that channel.
So much of my knowledge of why I think AC2 is as good as it is came from that channel.
I feel like
crazy.
I definitely think Execution producer influenced, at least to some extent, SSJ Lang's just incredibly sick AC2 playthroughs. Those videos are fucking insanely cool.
And MaceoniK too.
And MaceoniK. Yeah. MaceoniK like has to receive props in basically every conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
MaceoniK is insane. MaceoniK was doing this kind of stuff before anyone basically even considered it.
Yeah, and then he left right when he knew the series didn't care about it anymore.
Changed his name to Rip AC. Just saying what we're all feeling.
That man knew the day Origins dropped, it's Jover. It's done. Which is crazy because, I mean, you go back and look at
back then, I thought that was an overreaction. I was like, this doesn't look that bad. But then years later, I was like, oh.
He knew.
He knew.
It is crazy, dude. It's not even, like, you were one of the more measured ones. I mean, you had your reaction that, I don't know if you privated the video, but it was your video of Leo K plays E3 demo of Origins.
I think that may still be up.
Okay.
I don't remember. Let me see.
Okay.
But I did have that for sure.
Where you infamously described AC Origins parkour system as AC1 to Rev in Unity's engine.
Yeah, and like the demo I played did actually feel that way.
I believe you. Yeah, I know you wouldn't have said that.
And then when the final game came out, it's like they just didn't let me eject off of anything, and I was like, why did you change this?
Yeah. Man, it was so cool. We could have achieved greatness. We were this close.
Yeah. I was like, that's
So strange.
if you just gave me that, like I would have basically been happy.
Then you like I think especially of like the Four Pillars crew, you look at their AC ranking lists from almost every AC ranking list from 2017 or 2018 had Origins in the top 3. Like
Yeah.
really.
That was a cool
And
game.
now, yeah, and then now it's like near the bottom for most people, or at least somewhere near closer to the middle.
I think it's
right?
because people just recognize its influence. It's like the game itself, like and what it represented, they're kind of like two different things. It didn't have to be that way. People were way more gracious and kind to Origins when it was believed that like okay, this is going to improve from here and not regress.
Yeah.
Like it's going to like Origins is a new era of Assassin's Creed. It takes place before any of the other games, so it makes sense, and it's kind of like a soft reboot. So it makes sense that like some things are simplified, but just like the jump from AC1 to AC2,
There
right?
will be in an Arkham City to this Arkham Asylum. Right?
Exactly. And that like never happened because the next game didn't evolve any of those things. It actually just
Yep.
completely sidestepped the entire franchise. And
Yep.
now every game is an Odyssey sequel, basically.
Yep. Yeah. Except
Like,
for Mirage.
Except
in
for
a lot of ways.
Mirage. Yeah. Which,
But yeah.
oddly enough, Mirage does actually kind of feel like an Origin sequel.
Oh, I believe I probably I'd be able to get some enjoyment out of the game. But yeah, I don't know. I've made the decision that I think I'm going to leave AC behind in terms of buying new entries because yeah, I know I know what I want from the series is AC 1 to 3, and if I'm not getting that, then I don't really want to give them my money.
Yeah,
So
that's totally fair.
it's yeah. I don't judge people who are buying the games. I just in my Mirage commentary, I made a video like reacting to the gameplay trailer. Was talking to people in the comment section about they're like, bro, it's just a step in the right direction. If we buy Mirage, they'll see that we
Dude,
really
we've
liked
been
it.
stepping in the right direction for how long now?
Yeah, and that's what I said. It's no, this is a placation to get you wrapped around their finger so that when the next game comes out, you'll feel like there's a chance again. If you want to buy Mirage because you think it looks like a fun game and you'll probably enjoy it,
That's like the only good
ahead.
reason to do so. Yeah.
exactly. If you want to buy Mirage as some kind of vote with your wallet thing, because if I buy this, then
It makes it more likely that this or that will happen. It's like, no, like
no, and,
it doesn't
and
do
that's
anything.
the other thing too is even if that were the case, the executives take from Mirage selling well. Oh, the fans want more classic elements. What did the execs understand is classic AC? It would end up somewhere between Unity and Origins. Is probably where it would end up
Yeah.
because of the way the public discourse is in the larger.
Like, dude, Origins is already almost 10 years old.
That's why I really want to push things towards like, guys, we really need to buckle down on AC 1 to 3. Like Unity's fine, like whatever, you're allowed to like Unity, I understand. It makes sense tactically to push for something that is most likely to give you what you want. If you don't have a centralized understanding of what Assassin's Creed is in the material that you're pushing as this is Assassin's Creed, you're never going to get what you want in the games because number one, they're never going to get that. You're never going to get that thing again.
Yeah.
Whatever it is you push for, you're never going to get it back. You really think Ubi's going to do that? No. Ubi is not going to go that long without crushing your dreams. So yeah, just pushing for, well, if we could just go back to Unity, it's like at least push for something that's as pure of Assassin's Creed as it can be.
Right.
Because then when they meet you in the middle, inevitably it'll be closer to, even if you want it to be Unity, even if you really, really want it to be like Unity, it's more likely that it ends up like Unity if you push for it to be like AC1.
Yeah.
Like, even just tactically speaking, it's probably better for you. So either, maybe by some miracle, it does actually end up, they really do make a game that's like what you're pushing for. Okay, great, classic AC. But, even if you don't like that, what'll probably happen is they meet you in the middle, which will be what you want anyway.
I think
So
like the other thing I've been kind of like thinking about and pondering is that like these games are so big, like in every sense of the word and in every way that a game can be big, like scale, planning, resources to develop it, playtime, duration. Everything is just so big. They can only really improve one system at a time. That is like the sense that I'm getting. And this was a criticism people had of Mirage. Mirage didn't really really quote unquote do anything. It just
it
kind
didn't
of
progress anything mechanically.
Yeah, it didn't progress anything mechanically. Mirage was just a very good version of stuff that we already had, basically.
Yeah,
It was
a competent version.
yeah. And so like
With some interesting like spins on it, like the what do you call it, assassin focus.
yeah, and I did really
That's kind
like
of
that.
interesting.
I did really like that. People did not like that I liked that, but I really like that, and I
I
stand firm on
understand
that.
why you like it. I understand both
Yeah,
arguments.
like
Honestly. Not like
if you
not the
know Leo
realism
K,
thing.
like you know why I
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's not the realism thing. I think the arguments against it are more like on the on the gameplay side of things as to why I don't think this type of mechanic is a good idea to include in this game. So yeah, I think there's arguments for, but yeah, it's unrealistic. It's like, bro, Animus justify whatever, the sci-fi. This is a sci-fi thing justified using the Animus, and there's some vague historical, actual real world explanation connection to the Animus explanation.
It's very petty of me, but I genuinely just get so fucking angry at the people who are like, this is clearly magic/magical, and like they're willfully ignoring all the like sci-fi cyberpunk Animus flavoring of the ability.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, it's not a good version of the argument, because what they're really saying is this is too powerful for an assassin to be. Like,
Yeah, which is fine. Like, you're allowed to feel that way. But I mean, like, I also remember in my heart the way Ezio in ACB was carving through 10 billion people with double hidden blades without taking a hit. So, like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. I think both sides are legitimate ways to feel about the mechanic.
yeah, like, just don't tell me how I should feel about it, and we're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm completely indifferent because I've never even played the game. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And so where I was going with that is like the whole, it
Yeah.
feels like Assassin's Creed is so big and has become so big and has been so big for such a long time that like they can only really like give care to like one system at a time. And so it feels
Yeah.
like in Shadows, that's obviously not combat, because combat is just kind of, it feels like another sidestep where it's like, okay, it's like a fine version of stuff that came before with some differences, right?
Yep.
Parkour, obviously not. Anyone can tell just by looking at it. Clearly, like, the system that is receiving attention in this game is stealth. Which
And
is
stealth looks fine.
yeah,
It
which
looks
is very
it
nice
looks
for me.
Very enjoyable.
Because, like, I love
looks
stealth.
great.
That's my thing, right? Always has been. I will not get to leverage interesting movement as part of stealth in the way that I like. Because to me, like, that is what makes the loss of movement hurt, is that you're basically giving me fewer ways to express myself in stealth. And then, like, as an extension, like, movement is also integral to assassin identity. And so, like, I am able to express myself as a capital A assassin less, like, cogently, because I don't have access to good movement. It hurts on that level, on that axis as well. The fact that the game has spent so much care and so much attention on, like, making good stealth means that, like, yeah, okay, I'll check it out. When people ask me, like, Leo K. Rogue, like, are you excited for Shadows? Excited is the wrong word. I think it will probably be like a fine, like a decent game. There's too much that's not there for me, and that's totally fine. Like, I can't like demand that a game just be like everything I want, right? I mean, like, I would love to, but like I can't.
The light mechanics are interesting though. I think that's cool. They're bringing that.
I genuinely just hope that they like stick to it. Before we hit record, you and I had like a brief discussion on like, how some Assassin's Creed mechanics are what we call quote unquote cosmetic. Players like Fatal Fate, like they would call them shenanigans when the devs talk about certain mechanics or features in like gameplay demos with dev commentaries. And, sometimes they say something and then it's like, that's shenanigans, which is like, it means that it's technically true, but when you actually play the final video game, basically never comes into play. Is basically not present. For me, a potential shenanigan or like potential quote unquote cosmetic gameplay features is like, how important is the light and shadow stuff really? I hope it's important. I hope it matters. That one I trust a fair bit. Like, I think they'll probably do something with light and shadow, because it's simply impossible that they gas it up so much and then it just doesn't.
I mean, the game is literally called Shadows. To bring it back to the Choreo scene just briefly, going into the mod, and this is just my opinion, so I very much based on my preferences, more so than any objective position. I don't like runs that are technical for the sake of showing off technicality, where it feels like you're doing something in a run just for the sake of, well, this is hard. Like this requires intricate knowledge of the system to perform.
Right.
Like for parkour stuff, especially because I find a lot of times people would do stuff that really breaks the flow of movement, which it's just to say that they're engaging with the depth in the system. Like repeated wall jump ejects, like back ejecting between two walls repeatedly over and over again in unmodded classic AC, that is very slow because the catching on the wall, the prescriptive grabs there's a long delay in between them.
Yeah.
And it feels it feels like I'm using back ejects to use back ejects and not this is the fastest way of doing this or the most flowy way of doing this. So, but I've really felt like for
in Unity that combo would actually be faster.
Yeah. Or AC3, yep.
Or AC3, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, and that's just an example, right? But it's stuff like that where it feels like people are doing hard stuff at the expense of the run's actual integrity as a smooth, good-looking parkour experience because the spectacle is in the look at me doing this thing the game doesn't normally really let you do, right? Which is fine, but like I don't know, I found that what the issue was is that the entire choreo scene really, that was just what you did. That was the meta for a good long while. And I just don't like making runs like that.
I think that makes sense when you consider, like, when I use this word, I'm not placing a value judgment on it. The quote unquote maturity of the scene, which is to say, how soon after discovering this cool stuff did the player make that video? Because when you consider it that way, if a bunch of players just discover, like, oh my god, I can do all this cool shit, like, of course they're going to be doing it that way because they're still very excited. Like, the novelty is still there. Absolutely, but then once they've played the game for like a while longer and they've kept making videos for quite some time, then they realize, like, okay, you know, this stuff does not have novelty for me anymore. And so what can I do to like keep it cool for myself and to keep it cool for my viewers is to like maybe focus a bit more on efficiency. Maybe.
Yeah, makes sense.
Not necessarily,
no,
but like
I think it's a fair understanding.
It's basically just when you discover something, it's really cool and fresh and new and exciting, and you want to do it a lot.
Yep.
That's basically what I mean.
That is true. Yeah, and that really, like, that was the scene of Choreo prior to the parkour mod, and then the mod hit. And then all of a sudden, all of these things that we needed, all these text, in some ways even exploits, you know, in the mod, you just hold a button that makes you not stop at ledges. It disables any prescriptive thing that you just say, yeah, I'm disabling the system's restrictions on me, and I'm just going to go in this direction. And yes, you just hold the button to disable the prescriptive safeguards or, you know, automated tracking, which is universal. It applies on everything. It applies on wall runs that even if there's handholds, you'll just run up the wall as if there were no handholds. It applies on jumps that if you're going to it'll just like do a straight jump arc instead of jumping to any prescriptive thing. It's the same thing. I'm just going to run off this ledge as if it doesn't matter what's around me. I'm ignoring context. I'm just doing what the character knows to do.
I really need to like play around with that.
It's evolving into its final form now, which is, it's pretty great.
Animus technicians going crazy.
So true. Rebecca would be jealous.
Yeah.
But what I noticed with the mod ultimately is it really, because the system was so granular and because stuff that you would need to do this weird tech to figure out was just, you could just do it now. It's the focus switched back to just interacting with things in ways that look visually pleasant. It's not about doing this really obscure thing to try and, no, it's just about flow again. And it's just about doing things that look sick and feel great to play. But the thing is, because there's so much control, that it's really hard for it to get old because you can always, there's so many new possibilities with every single area that you can almost never run out of all the different things to do.
That is really sick, and it's kind of like a vindication of, if we did have this depth available and accessible at our fingertips, like, people would still just do things that looked cool and smooth.
Yeah. Like, if you watch any of Animus Drifter's latest videos, it's just, there's no trickery, there's no whatever, it's just how the mod works. It's just what it lets you do. There's no sneaking around behind the scenes to do things that you aren't really allowed to do. It's just how it works.
And when I talked to him, like he did mention that that's something that he really values. Like he doesn't typically love that much when people use the mod to do things that are essentially impossible. He prefers
Yeah.
to like showcase and represent things that like, natural extensions of what the assassin should be able to do.
Hmm. Yeah, they added a bunch of well, he himself did the math to they run a calculation. A good example of this was how swing up worked. That and like ledge flip by extension, like the horse flip.
Yeah.
Uh,
Basically like horse flip
so
anywhere.
yeah. So what they added math to be able to prevent that from occurring in situations where it doesn't make sense.
Oh, that's so
So
sick.
yeah, so now the mod runs checks on your entry height, the height of entry compared to where the height of the beam is that you're going to be or the
Right, so you
whatever
don't get
object you're
these
going to
like
swing off of.
weird, unnatural, like springy movements.
Yeah, so the swing ups you won't have depend if you came down from a dive beam to from anything like that, you dive beam to another beam. You could swing back up to a beam of the same height.
But you couldn't go like
If you
back
dive,
up.
yeah, say you were hanging on a wall and you ejected into a swing on a beam, and then you from the eject to swing into from against hands at the same height as the beam that you're swinging off of, and then you can't just swing up onto the next beam in front of you. That would just go into a swing on the next beam because the height limitations there.
Right.
So that really gets rid of a lot of abuse cases with not just swing up, but even there's a lot of decreased use of super hop now too.
Right.
So yeah, there's been a lot of stuff like that. That's like the main thing was just making sure you have to at least have to have some entry height, build up some velocity in order to do these flips or the swing up, which I think is completely fair. And yeah, it achieves that more grounded approach to like this feels natural to the assassin's moveset and doesn't number one looks fine because if you start doing some of these more wacky swing ups or super hops they can just look really bad, but yeah, this allows it to stay looking in a way that feels more appropriate to the kind of character that the assassin is animated to be and should be based on who they are,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, some really great stuff coming in the mod. It's but yeah, that's was something that I've really found with the Choreo scene as a whole. This has really, I think, reset the principle of it's not about doing stuff that the game doesn't let you do anymore. It's just about doing stuff that looks cool, and that's where I feel I'm a lot more at home. It's just like I just want to make stuff that looks cool, man. Technical stuff is important, and if there's something I really want to do, the game doesn't really like. If I can throw in a tech here or there to like glue the strands together, then that's something I feel more capable. But with the mod, I don't have to. It just works. Everything it just works, baby. It's fantastic.
It's so
So
cool.
yeah, I love it. It's been it for me and for Animus Drifter 2, I think he's mentioned that he in some ways feels similar to me. So for me, it feels like a rebirth of the choreo scene.
I
In,
could
in
see
a
that. Yeah.
yeah, so
I would love to revisit AC1 with that.
yeah, it could not help but improve the experience. In worst case scenario, you turn off all the actives and just enjoy with a little passive benefits like faster entering into
I
scaling
definitely
when you
want
grab on
my
a wall.
disable all prescriptive like,
Oh
actions
yeah,
slash
yeah,
conditions button.
yeah.
Just
The
be able to
freeform
run
button.
off
Yep.
stuff or like run up a wall without grabbing anything. Right?
Yeah, the
Like
freeform button's great.
I love it. Can I just basically enable just that just to play around with it?
Yeah, there's no reason you couldn't, or you could simply, because what parkour mode does, it just disables the inherent function of other, but like the face buttons or whatever, or the weapon wheel in AC2, or the assassin crutes in Brotherhood, but it doesn't actually change the game still reads your buttons as saying the same thing, right? So it just changes the way that it reacts to those things. So yeah, like if you my point is parkour mode isn't like vaulting turns on because of parkour mode. It just disables certain things in the game that would in-game actions that would conflict with these new added actions on top of it.
I see.
you can just deactivate any of the other ones you don't want. And parkour mode doesn't need to be. You don't need to have that as a thing. Henry would be a better person to ask about specifics, or even Animus Drifter. He'd be able to tell you a lot. But yeah, to my knowledge, like you could just uncheck certain boxes in Cheat Engine and it wouldn't like do anything.
Sick.
So
Yeah.
yeah, if you wanted to only have the passives or freeform, or just the passives in freeform, then yeah, like that is completely doable.
That's really cool. Just because I'm thinking, like, if I were to talk about this to an audience, like, one of the easiest ways to learn things is to just learn them, like, one step at a time, or, like, one or two
Yeah.
layers at a time.
Yep.
And so, like, just being able to have access to, like, all right, so, like, for this run, we're just going to have these two things, and we're just going to play with these two things. And then once you learn them, it's like, cool, we're going to add these things.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is because it's a mod, it actually has greater accessibility than would be present even if Ubisoft did something like this with a, parkour accessibility gradient. AC1 Rev parkour with safe parkour versus AC1 Rev versus like the mod. If you had to have the different, exploration mode versus guided mode or whatever, that kind of, if you took that approach with parkour, like you talked about several times in different videos in the past, you wouldn't be able to have the level of granularity of, okay, I'm going to enable turning on this particular thing. It's almost that because it's a mod, we have way more access with it than would be possible even if Ubisoft did the full thing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, this was a cool talk. Kind of impromptu. We just like went for it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I think it was really cool.
Oh yeah. I don't think, if I'd had a few more days to prepare for it, I don't think I would have really said anything different.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, it was good.
All right.
It was excellent.
Thank you for hanging out.
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate it.
I'm very glad we were finally able to do this.
Yeah.
It was a very good time.
Alrighty. And I
Very
hope
good.
you all enjoyed this. Check out Jcers for sure.
Very good. AC3 series. Jcers channel entering the AC3 glazing arc. It's gonna go crazy.
Yes.